What the fuck is up, everyone? Prison Metaler here. I'm back to the reviewing and rating every album series, and it's going to be Linkin Park. As let me know, their new album is coming out in quite a few weeks or so. So due to their album being close for a release, I'm going to do reviewing every single album by them. As let me know, just like with my previous videos, 0 out of 5 being the worst, and 5 out of 5 being the best. Just so y'all know, I'm not reviewing EPs, compilation, demos, live albums, or the mashup album with Jay-Z on there. So, yeah, I'm only reviewing their studio albums only. Not EPs, not compilations, not lives, none of that. Just their studio albums only. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Alrighty, now starting up, as let me know, we start up with Hybrid Theory, which is their debut album, released October 24th, 2000, released from Warner Brothers Records. And yeah, as let me know, this is a classic nu metal album. As let me know, this is the band's debut album. Tons of great songs. Paper Cut, that's probably my favorite Linkin Park song of all time. Honestly, to be fair, Hybrid Theory is easily my favorite Linkin Park album. I think this is their best album. I know some people may say Meteor is their best. Some people say Meteor is their best. Some people say Hybrid Theory is their best. And to be honest with you, it's pretty debatable which one. I really wouldn't argue on it because both albums are really great. But I think I prefer Hybrid Theory a little bit more than Meteora. But besides all that, yeah, Hybrid Theory, it's definitely a classic album. From start to finish, all songs are great. Paper Cut, which is a great opening track. One Step Closer, definitely one of their most popular songs. I actually grew up with this album, Hybrid Theory. This is pretty much my gateway to metal. This is one of those albums. Well, I actually did listen to some metal, like classic metal bands before I started listening to more modern metal, like classic metal bands like Black Sabbath, Metallica, Iron Maiden, and such. And then I started getting into nu metal. I think one of the first nu metal bands I listened to was Linkin Park, System of a Down, and Slipknot. Those were the three first nu metal bands that I listened to was System of a Down, Linkin Park, and Slipknot. So, yeah. And as you know, In the End, which is probably their most popular song ever, probably the most hit song ever, which is an amazing song as well. Yeah, I think this album deals with Chester's drug abuse and how he's fighting for it, and he's dealing with divorce with his parents. Now, I'm going to admit my parents were divorced when I was a kid. I can see where it's going through. But yeah, it's definitely a great album. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I definitely think this is a really great album. Definitely one of the best 2000s, one of the best albums in the 2000s. So yeah, I always go back to this album for sure. So yeah, Hybrid Theory is a really great album. Alrighty, next up we got is Meteora, released March 25th, 2003, released from Warner Brothers and Machine Shop Records. Another great album. Again, I know many people would debate this between this and their previous album, Hybrid Theory, as their best. But again, like I said, I think Hybrid Theory is better. But I still like this album. I really do love this album. Don't get me wrong. It's still great. I love everything about this song except for one thing, and that's for the song Nobody's Listening. I mean, I don't think the song is bad, but I don't think that song is necessary to be on the album. That's just all. But besides that, I'm really not complaining much. So, yeah, I think it's a really great album. Somewhere I Belong, great song. I love the song Don't Stay, which is an open. Figure .09. Why does this song not get any attention? Like, for real. That song is underrated as fuck, to be honest. Faint, that's a classic song. I do love the song Faint. Numb, definitely classic song. I love Numb as well. Great closing track as well. From the Inside, Breaking the Habit. It's a great song. So yeah, I like all songs besides Nobody's Listening. I honestly don't like Nobody's Listening that much, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't hate it or anything like that. I just don't think that song is necessary. I think that song should be replaced with. They could have added Lost in this. They could have replaced it with Lost or something like that. Which I think Lost was a B-side, unreleased track from Meteor. I think that song could have been on there, but oh well, it's whatever. But yeah, I'm really not complaining much about this album. I'm not really complaining anything. That's just my bite of criticism, that's all. But yeah, I think this is a really great album from start to finish. Tons of great songs. I mean, I read some reviews, and some people may criticize this album for being too similar with their last album. To me, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just Linkin Park being Linkin Park. It's a really great album. Not quite as good as their previous album, but I think it's a really great album. So I would also give this a 4 out of 5. Kind of leaning down towards a 3.5, but it's a 4 out of 5 for me. But yeah, it's 4 out of 5. I definitely think it's a really great album. But yeah, it still holds up to this very day, and I'm really not complaining much about it. So yeah, it's definitely a really great album. I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely grew up with it. So yeah, Meteor is a great album. Alrighty, next up we got is Minutes to Midnight, released May 14th, 2007. Released from Warner Brothers and Machine Shop. Now, this one is a lot different than their last two albums. I think they completely they abandoned most of their new metal elements. This album has much less rapping than their first two albums. I think there's only rapping in two songs from Mike Shinoda. The only songs from this album that had rapping in it is Bleed It Out and Hands Held High. And I'm not sure about the bonus tracks. I may have missed a few, but I'm sure it's only two songs that has rapping in it. But yeah, this album not quite as good as their first two, because there are some few songs that I just don't care for, to tell you the truth. I never cared for the song Valentine's Day. I just don't like the song Valentine's Day that much. I find that song too emo for me for some reason. I'm just not, again, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I am not a fan of emo music, to be honest. I am never cared for emo whatsoever. I find the song Valentine's Day too emo for me. So yeah, No More Sorrow. I do like No More Sorrow. Giving Up is definitely one of my favorite Linkin Park songs of all time. Definitely, by far, one of their heaviest songs. Probably the heaviest song on the album, too. So I definitely love Giving Up. Leave Out All the Rest is a good song. Bleed It Out is great. Shadow of the Day, What I've Done. But yeah, as for the songs after No More Sorrow, I just could care less about. I never cared for In Between. In Between is quite forgettable, and Little Pieces Give You Away. I just never that song is just really slow, to be honest with you. But yeah, I do think this album overall, I think it's decent. So yeah, it's a decent album. I would give this a 3 out of 5. Little lean towards a 3.5, but I think it's a 3 out of 5. It's definitely nowhere near as good as the classic first two albums. So, yeah, I mean, I grew up with it. I mean, I would go back to this album, but it's definitely not as strong as their first two albums. But I think it's very decent overall. So, yeah, Minutes to Midnight is definitely a decent album. I definitely think, I think at the time this was the longest gap between the two albums, because I think Mike Shinoda has another side project, Fort Minor. I think it's mainly because of the delay. So originally, I think that album was supposed to be out around 2005 or 2006, but I think there was a delay but I think it was delayed to 2007 because of Mike's involvement with Fort Minor, so I guess that's why there's a delay between the two albums. But yeah, as for Minutes to Midnight, decent album, but nowhere near as good. Alrighty, next up we got is 1,000 Suns, released September 13th, 2010, from Warner Brothers and Machine Shop Records. Now, as you may know, this is a concept album, and I kind of still stand by on what I said a few years ago. I still don't think this is a good album. This is not a good album, to tell you the truth. I honestly don't like the mixing. It just has this industrial electronic rock sound, and it just doesn't sound good. It sounds like they try to be like Nine Inch Nails with this album and failed. That's how I describe this album as. A wannabe Nine Inch Nails. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few songs I may find decent. I mean, the song When They Come For Me sounds like a B-side track from Fort Minor. Robot Boy, to be honest, I find Robot Boy to be such a boring song. I'm not gonna lie. I only like maybe The Catalyst. I do like Burning in the Sky. Some of these songs kind of sound like Coldplay a bit, to tell you the truth, and this is not a memorable album for me. I never liked this album to begin with, guys. I've seen some people say that this is Linkin Park's best album. Hell no, not even close. I mean, if you like this album, more power to you, but no, it's not better than their first three albums. Not at all. Nowhere close as good as their first three albums. But I mean, if you like this album, good for you, more power to you, but I don't. I never did. And I probably never will like this album. It's just a mess. I just do not like the direction they went compared to their last three albums. I was pretty hyped for their album after, years ago. I was pretty hyped for this album, despite the song they released a year before called New Divide, which is just a song for the Transformers soundtrack. I kind of thought they would put this song on there, but they didn't. And it's a really shame, because, to be honest, New Divide is way better than all of the songs in this album. And, yeah, I still don't like this album at all. I just think it's a pretty bad album, so I'm going for 1.5 out of 5. It's just not a good album to me. Like this album, more power to you, but I don't. I never had, probably never will. So, yeah. However, this is not their worst album yet. This is not their worst album. It was at the time, but it's no longer their worst album. We'll get to that later. Alrighty, next up we got is Living Things, released June 20th, 2012. Released by Warner Brothers and Machine Shop Records. And yeah, their fifth album. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Back in 2012, when I was a teenager, I was 15. I hated this album so fucking much. I was like, what the fuck was this? This wasn't Linkin Park. What the hell did I just listen to? This was awful back in the day. Because why? It kind of has more of its electronic pop rockish sound. And then I refused to listen to it back then again until back from 2012 to 2014 or so. And then a few years later, since I came back to this album after Chester Bennington died, I decided to give this another chance, and turns out my opinion on this album has changed. My thoughts on this album nowadays, it's alright. It's an alright record. I mean, I overreacted a bit. I think I'm not going to mention the album later on. I kind of admit I overreacted with this album a bit. There's plenty of songs that do hit, that are really enjoyable. I mean, I'll say this. I may not like the song Castle of Glass that much. I never cared for Powerless. I kind of find Powerless a boring song. But there's plenty of songs that I actually do enjoy, like Lost in the Echo, Burn It Down, Victimize. Victimize sounds like a Return to Roots song. Those songs do hit. I also like Until It Breaks. Those songs do kind of hit. Alright? You guys got me. Those songs do kind of hit. But yeah, this album, it's alright. It's fine. Okay? It's fine. It's alright. If I were to give this a score back then, when I was like 15, I would give this a 0.5 out of 5 or a 1 out of 5. But nowadays, I'm going to give this a 2.5 out of 5. I definitely don't hate this album as much as I did back when I was a teenager. But the album is still not great. But I'll say this. I do think this album is better than A Thousand Suns. Because it has some more of the Return to Roots soundish songs on there, but it's still not great. I'm still not a big fan of this electronic, industrial, rockish sound. There's a few songs that are just bored me to death, and yeah, but there are some of the songs that I actually do like. I'll give it that. So yeah, 2.5 out of 5. I definitely don't hate this album anymore as much as I did. Alrighty, next up we got is The Hunting Party, released June 17th, 2014. Released Warner Brothers, Machine Shop. And yeah, this is definitely one of their better albums in quite a long time. Many people consider this to be a Return to Roots album. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't consider this as a Return to Roots album. But I do like the way it turns out. This album turns out. I don't think it's a return to new metal roots, I mean, plus one, there's still less rapping in this album. It doesn't have a lot of rapping in this album like it did on their first two albums. And yeah, I mean, I know I can see why many people consider this as a Return to Roots album, but for me, I just don't see anything that's comparable to the first two. But again, I do like the way it sounds. I do like many differences on there. It definitely brought back the heavier Roots. Like it brought back it has guest appearances for the first time, like Paige Hamilton from Helmet, Darren from System of a Down, and Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, and the rapper Rakim. So, yeah, I do like how the album progresses. It has, especially, I like the way how it opens. Keys to the Kingdom, definitely a great way to open the track. All for Nothing, which features Paige Hamilton from Helmet. So yeah, most of the songs I do like. There's a few songs I just thought are meh, or just get thrown in the gutter. But yeah, I really don't have a lot to complain on here. I definitely think it's a pretty good album. I actually think it's, spoiler alert, I think it's better than Minutes to Midnight. But is it as good as their first two albums? Absolutely not. It's definitely not as good as their first two albums, but I definitely think this is the band's strongest in quite a long time. So I would give this a 3.5 out of 5. I definitely think it's a really good album. There may be some filler songs here and there, but not a lot. So I really wouldn't complain much. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this album. I do like how this album turns out. Even though I don't consider this as a Return to Roots album, I do like where this is going. Okay, now, the recent album, for now, One More Light, released May 19th, 2017, released May 9th. One More Light, released May 19th, 2017, from Warner Brothers and Machine Shop Records. And yeah, this album is a fucking piece of shit. Yeah, their worst album. So, yeah, this album is the main cause of me not hating Living Things anymore. That's album is pretty much the reason why I don't hate the album Living Things anymore. Because this album is trash. Hell, it's not even a rock album to begin with. It's fucking pop, electric, boy band trash. That's what this album is. And I know many people will say, how dare you, they're trying to do different things. No. Stop it. This album just sucks. I don't like the way it changes. It's very stepped down compared to their last album. Like, very badly. I hated the idea they decided to turn to completely pop. It's not even a rock album to begin with. And this definitely proves the band is sold out. I know people say, and I'm going to make it very clear, for many people who all hate this album but decide to like this album, and I'm starting to think the reason why many people started to praise this album is because Chester died. Just because Chester died does not automatically mean this album is good. Alright, just stop. And no, this is no disrespect intended. Yes, it's sad what Chester did after that, which caused an angry response from Chester. But again, just because Chester died does not automatically mean this album is good. Okay? I still think this album sucks. I think this sucked back in 2017, and I still think it sucks now. This album is total trash. I hate every single song. This album could go straight to hell. This is one of the worst albums I've ever heard. Oh, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. One More Light, more like one more shit. That's how I consider this album. Ugh. And what the hell? This is the most boring album cover I have ever seen. It's just people at the beach. I mean, if this was like a different title sound project, I may have tolerated it a little bit more. But title is Linkin Park, nah. I mean, how is this sound like Hybrid Theory or Meteora? Does any of the songs sound similar to their previous albums? Even Living Things, it sounds nothing like any of the shit that's from Living Things. Despite Living Things has a more poppy-ish sound record, none of its songs on here sounds any of the shit they put out from their last album, and that's why I hate this album. That's why I think this album is just a massive stinker. Yeah, fuck this album. This album is just trash. I give this a very rare 0 out of 5. This album is just such a blasphemous record. One of the worst albums I've ever heard in my entire life. Fuck this album. Dead or not, this album still sucks. And I don't care if I get angry responses from people. They can get on their knees and kiss my fat white ass. Alright guys, that's all it. You're gonna have to wait until the next album. What's that next album called? With the female singer. Hold on. Yeah, From Zero. You know, I don't have a review for that yet. You're gonna have to wait until it comes out because this album is not out yet. So, but I'll say the few of the songs on here from what I've heard with the new vocalist, the female vocalist. All of the songs, I think they're okay. I mean, it's not the same as it doesn't sound the same as Linkin Park, but I'll say this, they're okay to me. That's all. It's just something I won't go back to. But yeah, um, I'll say this: it's just not the same without Chester. But the songs are okay. I'll give it that. It's all right. It's just I'll probably listen to this album a few times, review it, and then not go back to it. I don't know. But other than that, yeah, they're all right. But anyway, that's my reviewing for every Linkin Park album. So yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say here. So that's pretty much it, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get the fuck out of here. So I'm out.